This isn't you, Gilmore Girls. You know it isn't.
This isn't you, Rory. You know it isn't. What's going on?
I tried my best to recreate a famous Rory Gilmore look with this sweater. It's not as iconic as the one she wears, but this is what I had, so this is what we're going with. Hi, happy fall. It's officially autumn, and many people out there have recently discovered the TV show Gilmore Girls, as well as the show keeping its longtime fan base. The TV show Gilmore Girls is known as a comfort and quote-unquote cozy show to a lot of people, and I feel like with the resurgence of Gilmore Girls on streaming platforms in the past 10 or so years, I have seen that the show has only skyrocketed into more popularity than ever before. That and its Netflix revival in 2016 has gotten the show even more fame than when it was originally on TV. A lot of people associate the TV show with the season of fall. I think this is due to the opening credits sequence, and also they have a lot of pretty fun episodes that are themed around fall, and the town is decorated for fall. It just gives off the right vibes that I think people are looking for in the time of autumn. With that being said, Gilmore Girls is celebrating its 25th anniversary this year, so I thought it would be most appropriate for me to talk about the show in all its glory, or in this case, in all of its missteps. I find it so interesting, the rise and fall of Gilmore Girls, and which seasons people rewatch over and over again versus which seasons people skim through entirely. It seems to me that Gilmore Girls has a bit of a downfall in its final seasons, and I find this very interesting. So today we are going to be exploring and investigating just how I believe the show's downfall happened and why. Let's get into it. Now, before we get into it, I just want to put a disclaimer that I will not be talking about Gilmore Girls A Year in the Life. I could probably make a whole separate video about A Year in the Life, as it has a lot of mixed opinions out there, but it was kind of iconic in the moment and in the time in terms of bringing everybody back for a revival of the show. But I will not be talking about A Year in the Life because I see that as separate from the original series, and this video is just going to focus on the downfall of the show at the time that it was originally airing with the original seasons. So when exactly did Gilmore Girls jump the shark, as they say, or in their case, crash the car into the diner? A lot of people, me included, would say that season 7 feels really different from the other seasons of the show, and there's reasons for that, which we'll get into later. But I do have to talk about season 6 because I feel like Gilmore Girls does start to hit its decline in season 6 for several reasons, but mostly surrounded around the plot points that they decided to do within season 6. A lot of people find the charm of the show of Gilmore Girls the relationship between the mother and daughter Lorelai and Rory. Lorelai and Rory are not only mother and daughter and best friends, but they have this unique banter with each other throughout almost every episode that I think adds to the charm of the show and the reason why people like watching that relationship so much. So in season 6, Lorelai and Rory are not really on good terms. They're actually estranged for almost half of the season. For 9 episodes, Lorelai and Rory are in a conflict in which they don't really talk to each other. And we never really seen a conflict that large before that separated Lorelai and Rory for so long. In prior seasons, Lorelai and Rory might have been in an argument or something, but the conflict wouldn't last for more than one, maybe a couple episodes at the most. But 9 episodes is crazy, especially at the time of filming the show, to have your fans wait to see your 2 main characters interact again. At the end of season 5, Rory receives some harsh criticism, which leads her to having one of the craziest crash outs of all time. She drops out of Yale and steals a boat. She ends up getting arrested and going on probation and having to do community service, but no matter what anyone tells her, including Lorelai, Rory just won't go back to Yale, and her life is kind of stagnant for the time being. This causes a rift between Lorelai and Rory, as Rory doesn't want to hear it from Lorelai about going back to Yale and getting her life back together. So for 9 whole episodes, they don't talk, they don't really interact, and it's most definitely not the usual charm and banter that people are used to when they turn on an episode of Gilmore Girls. I can't even imagine for people who watched Gilmore Girls live at the time to be tuning in week after week to see that Rory and Lorelai are not even interacting. Must have been very exhausting. Moving on, I do have to talk about the dreaded April storyline in season 6, which a lot of people see as the start of the show's downfall. Now, I could probably make a whole separate video as to TV shows who write a slow burn will they or won't they couple, and in Gilmore Girls' case, this would be between Luke and Lorelai, who then don't know how to create that feeling of angst and the will they be together, or to create much conflict within the couple's relationship outside of breaking them up. A lot of other TV shows do this too, where you're watching and rooting for a couple to get together for so long, and then it feels like when they finally get together, the writers have to throw in some crazy obstacle out of left field to break the couple up. I think the writers feel like people get bored once the couple is together. And I think that's because a lot of TV shows don't know how to accurately write good conflict within their relationships without breaking people up. This also being because writers put a higher emphasis on the will they or won't they of it all and the angst, and they don't know how to recreate those kind of feelings once the couples are already together. So in Gilmore Girls, there's this really slow burn between Luke and Lorelai, and they finally get together after seasons of fans rooting for them to get together. But in season 6, when Luke and Lorelai are finally together, the writers decide to throw in this crazy storyline from out of left field of the character April. Luke finds out that he has had a long-lost secret 12-year-old daughter named April. Now, a lot of fans hate this little girl. They hate her. And I think it's more so they hate the fact that the writers wrote this storyline into the show. Now, I don't actually hate the storyline of April, but I hate the way it was done. I can actually find it interesting for the writers to give Luke a young daughter and for him to be able to relate to Lorelai on that level. I think it could have been really interesting if written differently. But my problems with the April storyline are that, one, Luke lies to Lorelai about April after he finds out for multiple episodes. It just becomes so frustrating because the entirety of the show, Luke and Lorelai were best friends. They tell each other everything and they go to each other for advice in everything. So now that they're in a relationship and Luke is keeping this huge secret from her just didn't make any sense to me, and I think it frustrated a lot of the fans also, because in what world would anybody find out some crazy information about their life and then keep it secret from their girlfriend and their fiance for so long, somebody who they've always told everything to for years. Luke finds out about his daughter April in season 6 episode 9, and he doesn't tell Lorelai until season 6 episode 13. In my opinion, that is way too long to be keeping a secret from Lorelai, and it just didn't make any sense for Luke's character. My other huge problem with the April storyline, I know it was just created to cause conflict between Luke and Lorelai's relationship, which is frustrating already. But my other problem with it is the character of Anna and the way she's written. Anna becomes this kind of antagonistic character in the show because she just acts so irrationally when it comes to Lorelai, which is another big factor for the Lorelai and Luke breakup at the end of season 6. So Anna has kept April a secret from Luke for 12 years, and now she's finally allowing April to be in Luke's life. So you would think that finally allowing Luke to be in his daughter's life would also translate to the people who are around Luke, like his fiancée Lorelai. But Anna suddenly has this big problem with anyone else besides Luke being around April, and to me it just doesn't make any sense. After Lorelai helps Luke out with throwing April a party, Anna yells at Luke and loses her mind, like, how dare he let Lorelai around April and her friends? This just didn't make any sense to me because it wasn't like Lorelai was some random girlfriend that Luke went on one date with. Luke and Lorelai were engaged, and they've also known each other for about 20 years at that point. It just didn't make any sense why Anna would finally think it's okay to allow April and Luke to be able to see each other, but then she draws the line at anyone Luke is close to. Then later on, when Lorelai goes to apologize to Anna, Anna informs Lorelai that she wouldn't bring a guy around April unless she had known him for years and was planning on marrying him. This to me is a moot point because Lorelai and Luke, one, have known each other for years, and two, are engaged, which means they were planning to get married. So in Anna's logic, Lorelai should be perfectly fine to be around April, especially because she's someone who's so important in Luke's life. And when Lorelai makes this argument to Anna, she says that it's not the same. It just didn't make any sense to me. Like, at this point, they were making Anna a complete villain, which I guess is fine, but they were just using this entire plot line as a way to cause a huge wedge in between Luke and Lorelai's relationship, which I think is another reason why fans were so frustrated with season 6. Now moving on, we have to talk about the dreaded season 7. It is a common consensus among a lot of fans that season 7 is not good. And I believe this is because the show just feels so different and off. Now, why is that? Actually, the show of Gilmore Girls was created and run by Amy Sherman-Palladino. Now, Amy Sherman-Palladino and her husband Daniel Palladino had a heavy hand in the goings-on of everything of the show, with Amy being the main showrunner. Amy and Dan wrote and directed a lot of episodes on their own, and it's also common knowledge that even episodes they didn't write, those scripts had to pass through their hands for final approval. This made sure that the show had a very distinct, very unique, and very iconic voice. Gilmore Girls is known for this iconic dialogue. It almost has this musical feel to it when you listen to the show. The show has this very snappy, witty rhythm, back and forth banter between a lot of the characters. They talk really fast, they use a lot of pop culture references, and the rhythm of the show has this very distinct pace and feel. Now, Gilmore Girls was very strict in the way that the actors said their lines of dialogue. They had to say everything on the page verbatim, and they could not go off script even a single word. I think this strictness surrounding the scripts also helped to create that feel in that pacing of the show that Amy was looking for. It's also very unheard of that actors aren't allowed to ad-lib, say a line a little bit differently than it is in the script, or even improvise, but on Gilmore Girls, that just wasn't the case. They were looking for a very specific feel to the way things were being said, and they made sure of it. In an interview with Vulture, Sean Gunn, who plays Kirk on the show, was asked about improvising on Gilmore Girls, and he said this: "I should note, there was no improvising at all. There isn't a single syllable that has ever been improvised by anyone on Gilmore Girls. Literally. If you said didn't and the script said did not, we'd have to do it again. I say that from experience." With that being said, I think this example just goes to show how Amy Sherman-Palladino made sure to curate a unique voice within the way Gilmore Girls was written. Now, why season 7 feels so different is because Amy Sherman-Palladino and her husband Dan left the show. There's a lot of mixed series on why Amy and Dan left the show. There's actually a really interesting theory on the internet of people that believe that season 6 started to get bad on purpose, either in order to get a 2-season pickup where they would then be able to have 2 full seasons to stitch the storylines back together in a nice way, or because they knew they were leaving and they, I guess, wanted to leave the show in bad hands. Now, I don't think that people who created and worked on a show for so many years would intentionally make it bad for any of these reasons. So I do not think that these theories are accurate in any way. I just thought it would be fun to mention them because there are a small group of fans out there that believe in one of these theories. And I think these theories stem from an Entertainment Weekly interview that Amy and Dan did after they announced that they were leaving the show after season 6. In the interview, Amy and Dan talk about their frustrations with the WB, which was the network that Gilmore Girls was on at the time. In the interview, Dan says, Look, we've been working for the last 2 years with 1-year contracts, working 7 days a week for the past 6 years, and we wanted a 2-year pickup for the show, but a 2-year contract for us, so we could relax a little bit and not just think 300 days at a time, always wondering whether we'd be here. And we hit a brick wall with that. And also with our request for more personnel. Amy also goes on in this interview to say, I've had executives saying this will be the last season since season 4. We had a very specific idea of how we wanted this series to ultimately end, and there's a myriad of ways to get there, which could have accommodated another few seasons. There's also a small quote from Amy, and this quote is what I think that people took the wrong way regarding the way that the Palladinos left season 6 with some of their plot lines. This quote being, it's our problem with authority. If they told us it wasn't going to be the last year, then we'd have made sure it was the last. I think a lot of people took that quote out of context, and that's what sparked the theories online that the Palladinos purposely left the show in a bad spot, or they were trying to end up in a bad spot and the network would ultimately give them the 2-season contract that they were asking for in order to end the show. Now, the Palladinos leaving left David S. Rosenthal as the new showrunner of the show. David S. Rosenthal was no stranger to Gilmore Girls, as he was already a producer on the show before. So you would think that the show would be in good hands in terms of keeping up the unique voice, but the show really loses its pacing. The pacing and the rhythm just felt a lot slower, where Gilmore Girls was known for its fast talking. I think Amy Sherman-Palladino really captures what she wanted in terms of the pacing and the rhythm of the show. She says there's an energy within the dialogue, and you can really feel that within the earlier seasons, versus season 7, where it feels like they're trying to recapture Amy's unique dialogue and pacing, but it takes them a long time to really find their footing in that sense. Here's an example from season 1 that I think shows the way the show is written in terms of their fast dialogue and their banter between characters.
Because you lied to me.
I kept information from you.
Information that I should have had.
Information that would have come out eventually, like the Iran-Contra scandal.
So you're Oliver North.
No, I'm Fawn Hall.
Mom.
Well, she's much prettier.
I'm going to show an example of a scene from season 7 that just feels much slower than a scene from an earlier season, and also has a weird cut in there.
Be yourself. Be the dad that you are. Clark Kent dad. Christopher Hayden dad.
I guess.
Totally.
It's too late. I mean, I've got Gigi, and that's great, but Rory's grown up. I missed it.
You didn't miss it.
I've noticed that the Gilmore Girls dialogue a lot of times follows the rule of 3. In this case, being a character either says one point in 3 different ways, or they reuse a word or phrase 3 times within the span of a conversation. I think that in season 7, the writers tried to capture Amy's voice with using the rule of 3 a lot more often, but they don't capture it in the same way that the rule of 3 works in earlier seasons. Whereas in earlier seasons, the dialogue feels a lot more snappy, and sometimes if a word or phrase is repeated, it goes back and forth between 2 characters, but a lot of times in season 7, it's more so one character. And I think this doesn't just pertain to the rule of 3, but it pertains to the banter between 2 characters. Here's an example of the show using the rule of 3 in conversations prior to season 7. Take a look of how the phrase freaked out or hide it is used 3 times in this conversation.
And jobs are dropping and .com bombing and something's acting like a yo-yo, I don't know what, but it's not good. And over my dead body is Kate Hudson getting your spot. Let me just say that right now.
Mom, you're freaking out?
Yes, I'm freaking out.
Well, you can't freak out. I'm freaking out.
Well, hide it.
I can't hide it.
Then prepare yourself for an evening of magazine recitations by Emily DJ Doommeister Gilmore.
I'll hide it.
Now here's some examples of the rule of 3 as it is used in season 7.
Now I think, I don't know if I like Pop-Tarts. What if I don't like Pop-Tarts? Would I like Pop-Tarts if Richard and Emily had served me Pop-Tarts on a silver platter and demanded I eat every bite? I don't know. I'm writing a letter. I can't write a letter. Why can't I write a letter? I'm wearing a green dress. I wish I was wearing my blue dress. My blue dress is at the cleaners.
This moment in season 7 provides a really good example to how I think the show lost its banter.
What do I get out of it? And then I thought maybe their freakouts are like some kind of compass for me, you know? Like I know I'm doing what I want to do if it freaks them out. And then I thought, what if I don't want to do what I want to do because I want to do it, but because they don't want me to?
We see in this scene that Rory is kind of just a wall towards Lorelai's banter and doesn't really provide anything to bounce back onto Lorelai, where in prior seasons, Lorelai and Rory would bounce their banter back and forth off of each other, and Rory would feel like an equal contributor to the conversation. But watch how in this scene, Lorelai feels like the only contributor to the conversation, and it feels like she's just talking at Rory.
Or Blue, Casablanca. Casablanca's such a good movie. Casablanca, the White House, Bush. Why don't I drive a hybrid car? I should really drive a hybrid car. I should really take my bicycle to work. Bicycle, unicycle, unitard, hockey puck, rattlesnake, monkey, monkey, underpants.
Hockey puck, rattlesnake, monkey, monkey, underpants?
To me, it feels like they were just putting in a lot of dialogue for the characters to say without actually having the rhythm and the banter that the show had in prior seasons. Take a look to how many times the characters say the word provost in this scene.
With the provost.
The word provost. Provost. Extra provost on that, please. He's dying to meet the provost.
It's your mom who's all about the provost.
I'll have extra provost with mine.
I hope these examples are making sense in what I'm trying to say, because it is so hard to pinpoint exactly why the show feels so off within this dialogue. But I find, whereas in earlier seasons, there's a lot of back and forth between the characters, where in season 7, the pacing feels a lot slower. And when they try to do a quicker scene, they're just throwing a lot of words in there. And it usually ends up being one character talking a lot and another character not really providing or adding to the conversation, which loses that snappy back and forth that the prior seasons had. Moving on, a lot of the characters in season 7 just don't feel right, and I think they act a lot differently than they usually do. Some of the blaring examples of this are Luke. Now, I could possibly see Luke punching Christopher, but Luke getting into a fist fight with Christopher doesn't make any sense to me for his character. I can't believe that Amy or Dan would have wrote a scene in which Luke and Christopher get into a fist fight. It just doesn't feel like Luke at all. But Luke isn't the only character who doesn't feel like himself at all. The character Logan feels like a completely different person in season 7. He's not like the old Logan at all. And a lot of people say that they like Logan in season 7 because he's matured and he's had character growth. But Logan's character growth versus, let's say, Jess's character growth in season 6 is just incomparable, because whereas Jess has grown as a person, but he still feels like Jess Mariano, Logan feels like alternate universe Logan Huntsberger. He's so incredibly boring, which he wasn't before. And now I'm not the biggest Logan fan. I definitely have my problems with Logan, but in season 7, he doesn't feel like Logan. He's just really boring. I don't really care about his relationship with Rory, as not much really happens with them, as Logan's personality feels completely gone. All of his storylines revolve around his work stuff, and now as he's become this responsible, mature guy, I feel like we lost a lot of the fun and charm of Logan's personality. Because while I'm not really a Team Logan girl, I can understand people being Team Logan in prior seasons, but I feel like all that charm just gets lost in season 7. He's really giving nothing. He's kind of giving blank slate. Another thing that's weird about Logan is the rocket storyline, in which Logan gives Rory a model rocket as a gift, and it's supposed to play like this sitcom-y joke of Rory gets this strange gift and she has to pretend to like it, but this also just goes to show that the character of Logan, I don't think the writers in season 7 knew what to do with him. The whole rocket thing is never really explained by Logan. Like, Rory has to look up the meaning of the rocket, and even then, it just doesn't seem like anything that a prior season Logan would gift for Rory. It's just such a weird storyline, and it just doesn't feel right to me. I also want to talk a little bit about Marty, and I know people have mixed opinions about Marty. I actually watched a really great video about the character assassination of Marty's character, and I'm going to link it below so you can watch a more in-depth video of Marty. But I do think they also changed the character Marty a lot between seasons. Like, yeah, Marty did some annoying things, and he definitely had some flaws within the seasons before season 7. But in season 7, he goes from being a nice guy with flaws to almost a trademark nice guy, if you know what I mean, where he just treats Rory terribly and he treats Lucy terribly. And the whole plot line of Marty pretending like he doesn't know Rory just didn't make sense to me. And the way that he treats both Rory and Lucy just doesn't make sense to me for the guy that they set Marty up to be. This awkward, nerdy guy, but at the end of the day, he was kind of sweet. In season 7, Marty is not sweet. He's actually the worst. I think it comes down to the writers just not understanding some of these characters. Aside from characters feeling different, there's a lot of plot lines in season 7 that I don't like. One of them being the pregnancies. Lane's pregnancy makes me so mad. Now, I was originally so mad with Lane and Zach's relationship as a whole. I feel like the writers hate Lane so much because they never let my girl get anything good. Justice for Lane Kim, honestly. She should have been touring with the band, not married to Zach, but season 7, they really do her so dirty with the pregnancy plotline of it all. Not only getting her pregnant immediately after being married and being pregnant so young, but being pregnant with twins is just diabolical. Why do they hate my girl Lane? Justice for Lane. The Suki pregnancy also makes me very mad because what Jackson does to Suki in lying about getting a vasectomy, which leads to Suki accidentally getting pregnant again when she didn't originally want to, is diabolical. Jackson is completely the villain in this situation, but I feel like the show just glosses over it a bit. Like, oh, Suki and Jackson make up, so it's fine now. But what Jackson did is almost completely unforgivable, and it makes him unlikable in that sense. Now, I know the show had to make Suki pregnant because Melissa McCarthy was pregnant in real life at the time, but honestly, I just hated that plot line as a whole. Now, I do have to talk about the major elephant in the room, one of the most hated plot lines, Lorelai and Christopher. This is where I can really say that the show had some different writers working for it. Yes, a lot of the writers who worked on season 7 had worked on the show in the past, but in my opinion, I don't think Amy Sherman-Palladino would have written a storyline in which Lorelai marries Christopher. It just doesn't make any sense to me. At the end of season 6, the Palladinos had written this storyline in which Lorelai and Luke had this dramatic fight and breakup, and Lorelai immediately goes and has a one-night stand with Christopher. Now, a lot of people see this as the Palladinos purposely writing stuff bad because they did write this Lorelai and Christopher situation at the end of season 6, but I think that it's probably just another bad plot that they were going to cause more drama with going into season 7 as they are dragging out Lorelai and Luke's breakup to inevitably get them back together again. It has been proven time and time again in the show that Lorelai and Christopher just don't work like that. I mean, in an earlier season, Lorelai and Christopher talk about getting together, and then Christopher immediately leaves when he finds out that he's having a kid with Sherry. The whole Sherry having a baby thing sends Lorelai and Christopher's relationship crashing down, and I think the many scenes between Chris and Lorelai over the course of the years have proven and shown that both of them don't work well in terms of a romantic relationship. Now, I can see Lorelai going back to Christopher and making that mistake of the one night stand in season 6. As the end of season 6, Lorelai was kind of going through it. Although, do I like that as a storyline? No, but I can see them writers writing something like that. But I cannot see that Amy Sherman-Palladino would have wanted Lorelai and Christopher to end up in a relationship, let alone a marriage. Every episode with the scenes of Lorelai and Christopher, just like, I'm rolling my eyes through every single scene with them. I don't like them together. I don't care about them together. And with everything else that feels off in the show, it just makes you so angry to watch it back. Finally, I do want to talk about the townies because one of my favorite things about Gilmore Girls is the townies. One of my favorite episodes of all time is the Bracebridge dinner because all of the Stars Hollow people and side characters that I love are together and interacting with each other. I think there's such a charm to Gilmore Girls, and to me, the charm of the show also stems from these eccentric side characters that they place all throughout the town. I just love them all, and I especially love when two of the townies are interacting with each other, especially two people that don't usually interact. Like in the Bracebridge dinner when Paris gets to interact with some of the other townies like Miss Patty. It's very funny. but season 7 just doesn't feel as towny heavy. I don't really know why this is. They do have their Stars Hollow Town festivals and town meetings. I actually looked it up, and season 7 has a similar amount of town meetings to a lot of the other seasons. And they also have a couple of quirky Stars Hollow things going on in season 7. One being the stoplight, the knit-a-thon, they have the hay bale maze, and at the end have Rory's graduation party. But to me, I guess the writers that took over for Amy and Dan didn't write as much town stuff in, where it's like you see a lot of Kirk sitting at the diner, but you don't see a lot of Kirk and Babette and Miss Patty and Gypsy all being a part of something or interacting in some way. Yes, we do get some town meetings, which I like, and we do have some town festivals. But to me, for some reason, season 7 feels very lacking. And now I wanted to go in and look at all of the crazy town interactions from past seasons and add them up versus season 7, but I simply just did not have time to do that. So does season 7 have significantly less town stuff going on? I'm not exactly sure if that's true, but it feels like it. And maybe it feels like it just because, like I said, we don't see as much of the interactions between characters that don't usually interact in weird, odd pairings. I was waiting for some more charming town moments. I felt like the writers of the show knew those characters so well and had a lot of fleshed out town shenanigans. I just don't know as far as highlighting the townspeople, if there's as much as that going on in season 7. To me, it feels like there's not. I could be wrong, and yell at me if I am wrong, but that's just the feeling that I got from rewatching season 7. I do feel like as the season 7 episodes go on, some of the later episodes, they start to find their pacing a bit better. But the earlier season 7 episodes just feel so different. It's like the rug got ripped out from under us for real. So I do feel like the downfall of Gilmore Girls starts to tip in season 6 with some really frustrating storylines in which they kind of lose why people watch the show. But the major decline, I believe, starts in season 7. I do believe the last 2 episodes wrap the show up in a good way. Now, I'm not talking about A Year in a Life. This is just my opinions on how they ended the original series. I think they wrapped everything up in a decent way, and they started to find a little more footing towards the end of season 7, but you can't tell me that there's no downfall of Gilmore Girls. So I don't want any Gilmore Girl fans getting mad at me because I am a Gilmore Girls lover, but you can't tell me that you guys love watching episodes from season 7. You just can't. You can't tell me that you love seeing Lorelai and Christopher get married. You just can't. So I could talk forever about Gilmore Girls in general, but I did want to just hop on here and rant a little bit about season 7, as my mom just recently finished watching Gilmore Girls, and it reminded me of the things that I love so much about the show, but also what I hated about the show, which is the show's decline in the later seasons. So let me know in the comments if you agree with me. Let me know if you want me to do another Gilmore Girls themed video and what you would like me to talk about if I did do another Gilmore Girls video. And that's all I have for you today. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel, as I am trying so hard to put out more videos more frequently. I'm having a lot of fun with doing this channel and making videos. So if you are also having fun, please subscribe. Like my videos, watch some of my other videos if you care. But thank you so much for watching this one, and I will see you in the next one.